this is Dr. Kingston, and in this video I'll be talking about the eyeball. The objectives for this video are to identify the three parts of the eyeball, and then to describe the apparatus that supports the eyeball and its various components. The globe of the eye, or the eyeball, is composed of three distinct layers. Externally, there's a fibrous layer that protects the deeper structures. This is made up of the sclera posteriorly and the cornea anteriorly. Deep to that in the middle, we have a vascular layer that houses the arteries and veins serving the eye. This layer includes the choroid posteriorly and the ciliary body and iris anteriorly. Our deepest layer then is made up of nervous tissue. So these are the photoreceptors and the interneurons that make up the retina, and they will eventually join together posteriorly as the optic nerve. The fibrous layer looks very different across regions of the eye. Posteriorly and laterally, this layer is made up of the sclera. This is an opaque layer, and it forms what's commonly referred to as the white of the eye. This portion is not just a tough protective layer for the eye, but it also assists the eye in maintaining its shape, and it serves as a site for extraocular muscles. So those little muscles that move the eye around to point the pupil in different directions, it gives them a place to insert. Anteriorly, the cornea is a transparent covering for the iris and the pupil. Now, because light needs to travel through it unimpeded, it's avascular. So you don't want to see little blood vessels while you're looking through your cornea is the idea here. Because of this, the tissues are nourished by some fluids that are produced by the ciliary muscle back here, and then that flows up to the posterior surface of the cornea there. The cornea is also incredibly touch sensitive, and this is very likely to help prevent injury, which would not only impede your vision, but it also takes a long time for an avascular structure like this to heal. Importantly, the cornea also has a shorter radius of curvature than the eye itself. So if you look on the image here, you'll notice that it bulges out pretty distinctly from the rest of the eye. This curvature is important because it provides the main refractive index for the eye. So what that means in plain English is that the cornea plays the largest role in bending and focusing light for the eye. It's even larger than the lens. So as light travels through the cornea, it gets bent at specific angles by this curvature, which will in turn focus that light on different areas of the retina. So this is similar to how contact lenses work. They sit over the top of the cornea and they change the angle that light coming into the eye is bent at. The vascular layer, or the uvea, has three distinct parts. So sitting deep to the sclera is the choroid, which houses the main vessels and the capillary bed that supplies the eye. There's so many little blood vessels hanging out in the choroid that they're visible through the pupil if you shine in a bright light. So in the days before digital cameras, it used to be that shooting off a flash at the wrong angle while you were taking a picture would reflect off the choroid and you get that lovely red eye effect. Anteriorly, deep to the cornea here, we have the iris and the pupil. And then just deep to that is the ciliary body. The ciliary body is home to a smooth sphincter muscle that suspends the lens, and it acts to change its shape when you're focusing on something that's up close or far away. So just a quick review, a sphincter muscle is a circular muscle that decreases its diameter when it fires and increases its diameter, it gets bigger when it's relaxed. All right, that ciliary body also has a component that produces some of the fluid that's going to flow up into the space here between the iris and the cornea and help nourish that avascular cornea. The iris is the colored part of the eye. So this is a smooth muscle diaphragm that sits anterior to the lens, and it changes its shape to allow different amounts of light into the eye. The central aperture, or that hole in the middle, is the pupil. And to our eyes, it looks black, but it's actually an empty space. The sphincter pupillae muscle of the iris makes the pupil smaller in diameter, which is going to let in less light. And this is controlled by parasympathetic fibers that originate with the oculomotor nerve and synapse in the ciliary ganglion. The dilator pupillae muscle does the exact opposite. It makes the pupil larger and it lets in more light. And this is controlled by sympathetic fibers traveling up the sympathetic chain to the superior cervical ganglion, synapsing, and then riding into the orbit on the internal carotid and ophthalmic arteries. So for these, I find that the rest and digest and fight or flight mnemonics are very helpful in thinking about which nervous system acts on each of these. If you're having a parasympathetic response, you're relaxed, you're resting, you can kind of imagine being in a darkish room just kicking back. If you're having a sympathetic reaction, you're alert, you want as much light coming in as possible so you can see your surroundings really clearly if you need to escape. Moving into the nervous layer, also called the retina, this is where we're going to find all of the photoreceptors and the communicating cells that form a chain to the ganglion cells that will eventually become the optic nerve. So we have two types of photoreceptors in our retinas. The rods distinguish between light and dark, so they react to the amount of light that's striking them. They're both the more numerous of the two photoreceptors and the more sensitive. So because of this, they are pretty effective in both high and low light. The cones are sensitive to differing wavelengths of light, which is what produces our color vision. They're much fewer in number, and they also require a large amount of light to strike them before they're effective. So this is why colors look dull in low light or almost existent in dark places. Both of the photoreceptors synapse with communicating cells in the deeper layers of the retina. So you can see that happening here. There are several different types of communicating cells here, including interneurons and glial cells that are going to chain together into a pathway of impulses that travel up to these ganglion cells. And the axons then from these ganglion cells are what are going to join together to form the optic nerve that will carry these visual impulses back to the brain. The last region of the eye that I just want to very briefly touch on is its innermost component, which contains the vitreous body and the lens. So the vitreous body is an acellular gel that fills up the largest space in the eye, and it helps to support the retina by keeping it pushed securely back up against the choroid and the sclera. The lens is a solid, transparent structure that's suspended by the ciliary body. It's relatively plastic, so it can change its shape, and with some help from the ciliary body there, it can change shape to accommodate both near and far vision. And that, my friends, is the eyeball. So let's have a practice question. All right, the correct answer here is A. The cones are the type of photoreceptor that are affected in an individual who is colorblind. So the cones react to different wavelengths of light. So if a person is not sensitive to a specific wavelength, it's because they do not have the cones for that color. All right, that is the end. Thank you for watching.